Kia ora and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Lounge, a space where healthcare leaders like you can take a moment to take that big breath in, pause, reflect and get another perspective on the work that you're doing. I'm Katie, I'm your host, and I have a background of working in healthcare for 30 years, and I now work with leaders and their teams who work in healthcare, helping them manage and juggle the demand and the complexity of the work that they do so that you can feel excited and hopeful about the days and the weeks that you have. So this week I have from a regular listener, the question of the week. I feel like this could turn into like an agony aunt kind of space, which I'm all for, right? The ask me anything doesn't sound quite as good, but it's that kind of thing. And it was a comment that I have heard from more than one person, and it was, how do I stop fighting fires? How do I move into preventing fires? I want to stop fighting fires. I want to prevent them. So I was like, that sounds like a topic for a podcast. So here I am. So that's what I started looking at. And I got quite interested in this idea of firefighting. And so the first thing I did was go and search, okay, how do we actually prevent actual real fires? And is there anything we can learn from that in the healthcare space? And so I got some good ideas. And it was things like, use surge protectors, never leave flames unattended, keep flammable items away from heat, sort your smoke alarms, cut the clutter, and have an escape plan. So I thought, okay, there's some good stuff there. I can see some connections and analogies and around how we work in healthcare. Let's have a think as to what else is out there. So I went searching and I found a few interesting posts and articles, some more so than others and some with different perspectives. And like all topics that we talk about, there's variations on depth and angles that you can look at these things. So as always, I will put the links to the articles that I have read and found as I've been looking at this topic into the show notes. And I am sure, because I have got quite interested in this, that this topic will come up again in the weekly I Am No Jedi email, which, as you know, has nothing to do with Star Wars, but is that bright spot in your inbox when your inbox is full of stuff to do that can feel like another thing to do. The weekly email I send is to lift your spirits, to bring you some hope and inspiration about the work that you do. So you can sign up for that in the show notes as well, or go to www.katiequinney.com/subscribe. All right then. So to this idea of constant firefighting that you have to do in the world of leading in healthcare. And there were some great articles, and an HBR article I read, which was, yes, in the context of manufacturing businesses, but it really resonated when they started to say, you've got more problems than time to deal with them. And I thought, well, that's true, right? And so many minor problems get ignored, or you rush from one to another, not completing one completely before then getting interrupted to rush on to the next one. So often problems can reoccur and they can cascade, and small problems can very easily become a crisis. So they're kind of like smouldering and then they flare up. And then you have to be really heroic to go in and solve them. Whereas if we could have fixed them sooner, it might not have taken quite so much heroism and it would have been simpler, easier fix. The other thing that this article talked about is this idea that because there's more problems than there is time to deal with them, we go to patching problems. And patching problems doesn't actually solve it, and it actually makes it worse because you're having to go back and fix the fix that didn't fix it, as well as fixing the actual problem. So there can be some significant impacts to kind of working in that kind of way. And another article that I came across really pointed out the why this matters. Okay, so why does being in this constant state of firefighting, why not just roll with it? Why not just accept it? And this article reminded us that there's damage to employee morale and engagement. We get decreased productivity and effectiveness when we're constantly in firefighting. And it actually has that negative impact on the experience and the service that you are delivering. So the communities and the patients and the people that you and your teams are there for, they're going to get a reduced experience and service as well. So it is worth thinking about these things. Now, I think this is always in the context that healthcare is an emergency service in a number of settings. And so therefore, there are always going to be fires to react to and respond to. But there should also be a curiosity and a questioning to go, is the balance right? Have I got this balance right for the work that I do? Because not every area of healthcare is that emergency reactive sort of space. So this ability to question and go, could I be more proactive? And if so, how on earth do I get there? So I've came across quite a few articles that had, some varying levels of suggestions, and some of which I was kind of like, yeah, nah. And others I thought, oh, that's worth thinking about. And others that were kind of like, oh, yeah, no, completely. I've seen that work. One of the ones that I really grabbed onto, I thought, oh, yeah, that I've definitely seen work. This idea of solving classes of problems, not individual problems. Now, the best example and the thing that really resonated, in a number of the quality roles I have been in, you would see very similar incidents reported. Now, the time it takes to whatever safety management system you're using to kind of review and go and find out stuff and then put the data in and then come up with recommendations, that can actually get quite time consuming. And so on a number of occasions, what I've done is collated them together, or the teams and services I was working with, we collated themes of them together and gone, okay, this is pretty much the same kind of problem. How do we solve this as a collective rather than each individual case? Now, I was involved in some really very spectacular, good improvements that came out of an approach like this. So I thought that was one of those really great ideas, that you solve classes of problems, not individual problems. And if I think about that list of ways to prevent a fire that I got, that is a bit like cutting the clutter. It's a bit like saying, okay, yes, there are 25 things on the list here, but actually it's one group of it's one class of problems. It's not 25 different problems. Let's solve the one rather than the 25. So that kind of fitted it in my thinking to the cutting the clutter. So what other kind of ideas? So the surge protectors I thought was quite a good idea. What are the surge protectors that you can put into your practice? Now, one of the things that I had come across was this idea of waiting until the last minute to do something. So often we can rush from meeting to meeting or day to day or problem to problem that actually you're always on the back foot or just ahead of the curve. And waiting until the last minute to do something is often when additional problems can come up and then you find yourself firefighting. So there's some stepping back and thinking about this. If you think about your surge protectors, this is things like putting in blocks in your calendar to prepare for something. If you've got a meeting coming up and you've got tech that you need to face, or you've got a challenging conversation to have, put in some time in your calendar so that you can prepare. It's also things like planning your day, prioritizing the work, delegating effectively. Prioritizing comes up a number of times in the firefighting kind of scenarios. So that's going to come up, and I have, lots of ideas in that space, and it's almost like a whole other topic on its own. But what else in the surge protectors? So I found this fabulous article, and it was kind of like how to put out fires like firefighters do, and it actually used examples of the stories and experiences and wisdom from people who fight wildfires around and relating it to a sort of a business and working sense. And one of the things it said was, don't squander the early mornings. So don't squander your early morning. And the rationale behind this was that large fires, in the actual wildfire setting, large fires are most active in the afternoon. And so hottest part of the day, there was a whole list of things. And what I was taking from this was it's around, it's the how do you get yourself ready for the day? There was an element of that, how you prepare yourself for the day, but also about what you work on first. What is at the front end of your meetings that is going to help you dampen down any fires or notice what fires might be coming up so that you can solve them? And the other component of this sort of surge protector kind of element, or almost an escape plan kind of thing, is the ability to adapt and flex your day based on things that might come up. So it was always leaving some space, always having some buffer or some blocks in your calendar that are free. I know, don't laugh. Please don't laugh. It might be possible. Think of it as an aspirational goal. But what this gives you is the ability to shuffle your day around if things go haywire and you have to change things. So all of a sudden you've got flexibility. So that's a fabulous ability. That's a escape plan, surge protector, or keeping the flammable stuff away from heat. It's all of that kind of idea of firefighting. But this idea of a buffer zone, I'm a big on buffer zones when it comes to getting to the airport on time. I actually almost make up the time that my plane is going so that I have additional buffer time as well as the time that you already plan in as buffer time. I presume or plan for bad traffic so I'm not late somewhere. And that means that if something does come up, then I'm still going to be there on time. Therefore, I don't have to, I'm not on the back foot. I'm still arriving calm and collected to whatever I'm turning up to. And equally, you can think about it in terms of your day and how you plan your week. So there's a lot in this prioritizing planning space that actually gives you the space to respond without feeling like you're panicking, without feeling like you are being caught on the back foot and then now 5 other things that you had planned for that time have got to go onto tomorrow's list. So hard, I know, because most leaders that I speak to in healthcare, they've already got a back-to-back day. They're already completely full. And my challenge in that space is that I believe you have more control than you think you do. And I think we do. This is the thing about prioritizing, right? Everything feels urgent. It's often that sort of messaging that we get, given the story we hear, is that everything is urgent. So that useful, I've completely forgotten the name of it now, but that useful kind of matrix where you go, what's important, what's urgent, what could I delegate, all of that sort of stuff. Everything falls into the it's urgent and important, I've got to do it now. And I just wonder if we're really clear on the priorities, and that's about a team and a leader and a manager conversation around, okay, what are we actually focusing on here? What does need could drop down to an important space versus an urgent space? What could be delegated? I think they're conversations that taking some time to have is going to be the thing that allows you to create that buffer or that space or that flexibility that you need to be able to manage the workflow as it comes in. I worked with someone, she reported to me, and she came to me once with a list of, this is all the stuff that I'm doing, and this is what I think is important. And she did put it on a scale of 1, 2, and 3. This is the stuff I'm never going to drop. This is the stuff that when the workload increases that I will keep an eye on, but I might not be able to pay as much attention. And this is the nice to get to stuff that, we'd like to. And it was a really great conversation that we could then have together to just move things around with different contexts and examples, so that between us, we were both really, really clear as to what she was prioritizing in the work that was most important and urgent, and how her days could be planned accordingly. So that was a really useful way of doing that. Now, there's a great article that actually just gave a really, really succinct list. And this urgent or important came up in that. So first up it says, are you doing urgent work or are you doing important work? And you've really got to get clear on the differences between those two. And we often, and I think in that original HBR article, one of the things that they talk about is that urgency supersedes importance. And if we go to the context and the realization that healthcare is a long game, yes, there's going to be things that are going to flare up from time to time, but at the end of the day, this is a long game you've got to be in. You need to make some traction on the important things as well as the urgent things. So urgency superseding importance is one of the drivers for firefighting. And that's the shift we've kind of got to make. So urgent or important, asking yourself those things. This article also suggested the blocking the time on the calendar to do actual work. And a number of people that I have worked with talk about this idea of having an open door policy and getting interrupted. And that, yes, can be good because there might be an actual fire that you need to be interrupted for. But equally, it could be something like just for an hour putting a do not disturb sign on your door, or, a variation on that, or letting somebody know that you're focusing on some work just for 45 minutes and then you'll be able to be available. That actually builds quite a lot of empowerment across your team, as well as giving you the headspace to work. Don't do it kind of like without explaining why you're doing it and what you're doing. And the ability for your team to be able to come and contact you and speak to you is also important. So as we touched on last week, as a leader, you're often holding these tensions around how do I balance these two things out? But blocking time on your calendar to work on those important things is important. The other question it said, or the thing, are you working at your most productive time? We all have different flows and ebbs in the day and when we're at most productive. And that beautiful article about managing your energy, not your time, is what comes to mind around this. So are you doing that kind of focused work on the important things that is going to prevent the fires at the time when you are most likely to get the most out of that time? Another one, it goes, have you stopped multitasking? I absolutely love that one. It was kind of like this real clear statement. There was no discussion that multitasking is a thing and all of that kind of stuff. It's just, have you stopped it? Because it just doesn't work. So it was very clear. Have you stopped multitasking? The other thing on this list that I really liked was, are you breaking big tasks into smaller chunks? I definitely can remember moments where I just felt completely overwhelmed by the size of something. It's like, what do I need to do? And I was talking to someone yesterday, and you could almost, in the way they were talking, it was like, there's just this big mountain and I don't know how to do it. And it's just like, okay, what's the first step? Just take the first step. So breaking those things into small components or smaller tasks is going to make it much easier to get on with those different things, prevent a fire coming up because you're making progress. And the last one on their list in this article was the, are you delegating? So delegating, again, like prioritizing, has come up a number of times on this one. And there was a good, in the article about the fighting the wildfires, the phrase it used was passing the nozzle. And it was this idea that the senior firefighter would pass the nozzle to someone who was junior and just learning, so that they could be standing beside them while they did this, because this was the first time that they did it. And it was a beautiful, different take on that idea of scaffolding that we put around people to support them as they're learning. So often when we think delegating, we consider the teams and we're like, they're already overstretched, they've already got too much to do. How could I possibly give them anything? And it's not about dumping work on people. It is about empowering and developing and enabling people to build skills and experiences and examine their strengths and to test and try new things. But this idea of passing the nozzle and being a mentor to them as they learn that task means that you're creating more problem solvers, or technically more firefighters. And that, again, was a thing that came up in that original article from HBR around, let's create more problem solvers. Don't think it's all on your shoulders to fix all these fires. Who else around there can help with this? And then the last thing that the HBR article talked about, or a couple of things actually, they talked about shutting down operations, and I kind of almost skipped over this completely because it's like, you can't. That's one of those things that stands healthcare out, I think, is we can't just stop. However, I kind of then took my own lessons and go, okay, what's a 1% version of shutting down operations? And actually it's stopping to take 30, 45 minutes to have those conversations about what is urgent, what is important, What are our priorities? What are we working on? And having those conversations as a team and with your manager so that you actually are all on the same page. We rarely give ourselves time to do that. So maybe that's the healthcare variation on shutting down operations. It's actually, going, okay, we know there is more work than we can possibly get on with right now. And if we take 30 minutes to understand what people's priorities are so that we're actually all understanding the difference between urgent and important and are actually making the most of our skills and our strengths as a team, we'll actually be more efficient at getting the work done and stand a better chance of not fighting those fires. The other suggestions were outsourcing some parts of the problem. And this kind of goes alongside creating more problem solvers. So how do you increase the capacity and the capability in the people you've got, but who could you tap into just for a short period of time? If you can't facilitate a conversation with your team or that's not your skill set, bring somebody in to do that. Who else around you could do that for you? So I want to go back, try and wrap up. I'm checking my notes because there was such interesting stuff. It's definitely going to come up in a No Jedi email, so it'd be worth subscribing if you don't, for some sort of a slightly deeper thinking and rationalising around stuff. So the list that we had: use surge protectors. There's things like planning your day, never leaves flames unattended, keep flammable items away from heat, cut the clutter, sort your smoke alarms, and have an escape plan. Lots of ideas that have come up just from a few articles that I put the links to in the show notes. And I can, definitely feel a blog post coming on from here. So there'll be lots of ways to check out more if this wanting to not fight fires, but think about how you can prevent them is key for your sense of achievement and sense of what you're trying to do at work at the moment. You can subscribe, www.katiequinney.com/subscribe. You can also find the podcast. Oh no, this is the podcast. You can also find the blog there. And finally, wrapping up is the celebration and joy and sharing the happy dance I did around the office this morning when the linking through to Spotify got fixed. Seriously, I made like a quick couple of phone calls to people. I was so joyful. Sent a quick message to someone to go, look, it's back there, I fixed it. Some thank you emails to all the people that had been putting some headspace and thinking time and come up with ideas. In the end, it was embarrassingly simple, unknown to me thing that was so simple to fix. It was incredible. I learned some new things, and I have specific thanks to the Spotify help desk thing and Squarespace help centre, who were both the people I was communicating with were absolutely phenomenal at helping me ask really what I thought dumb questions like, what is that? How do I fix it? And being very clear about what I needed. I actually said in the email back to the Squarespace people, I said, I'm going to need very clear instructions because I have no technical abilities. And that's exactly what they sent me. So my lessons there were asking the questions that you're too embarrassed to ask, paid off, and being very clear on what I needed and how I needed it in order to get the work done. So celebrations and lots of learning and lessons in that as well. So I have a big smile on my face as I record this podcast. So thank you again for listening to the Healthcare Leadership Lounge. I am Katie, your host, and I will be back next week. And I am looking forward to what topic might come up over the week that I'll then think, that'll be a good podcast episode. It'd be great to hear from you if there is conundrums or issues you'd love me to delve into and explore a bit more with you in the Leadership Lounge. You take care and have fun.